In a small village, surrounded by fields and winding dirt roads, lived a woman who was known to everyone simply as the farmer's wife. Her life was not easy. Every morning before the sun rose, she would wake up to tend to the animals, feed the chickens, milk the cows, and prepare breakfast for her family. Her hands were always busy, her back bent from long hours of work, and yet there was a quiet spark in her eyes that people rarely noticed. While the villagers saw her as just another hard-working woman on the farm, few knew that she carried a secret talent within her, a skill that had been with her since childhood. She could play the piano. Her piano was old and slightly out of tune, tucked away in a small corner of her home. She had inherited it from her mother, who had been a music teacher before the responsibilities of life took her away from her own dreams. The keys were worn, some of them chipped, but to her they were precious. Every evening, after the farm was quiet and the chores were done, she would sit by the piano and let her fingers dance across the keys. The music allowed her to escape, even for a little while, from the hard life she lived. It was a secret world where she could be free, where the worries of the farm could melt away. In the village, news had spread that a local gathering would take place in the coming weeks. It was a celebration of talents, a place where villagers could showcase skills, arts, and crafts. The farmer's wife heard about it while fetching water from the well, listening to the chatter of people. Some were excited, others skeptical, and many were already laughing at what they imagined would happen. A few villagers joked loudly, saying that the farmer's wife could not possibly have a talent worth showing. They teased her openly, calling her just a simple farm woman who spent her days in mud and dust. Their words were meant to hurt, but she tried to ignore them. Still, their laughter lingered in her mind. She thought about the piano, about how she could bring something beautiful into the world if only she had the courage. The thought of performing in front of everyone was terrifying. Her heart would pound at the idea of being laughed at. Just like so many times before when she tried small performances at family gatherings. But at the same time, there was a small voice inside her urging her to try. What if she could surprise them? What if she could show them that she was more than just a farmer's wife? Days passed, and she began to make a plan. She would practice quietly, hiding the sound from anyone who might come by. She would play until her fingers hurt, until every note felt perfect, till she could feel the music flowing through her naturally. She practiced when the sun was just rising, before anyone was awake, and late at night when the stars shone bright above her little home. She would sit on the worn stool, her fingers moving carefully across the keys, repeating the same songs over and over. Each time she noticed small improvements, a smoother flow, a softer touch, more expressive sound. Life on the farm was not easy. Sometimes it felt like the piano and the chores were at odds with each other. There were mornings when she was too tired to even think about playing, when the animals needed her more than the music did. Some days, she would make mistakes in her practice, her fingers slipping or hitting wrong notes, and she would feel a surge of frustration. But she did not give up. She reminded herself that this was for her, that this was something that no one could take away. It was her secret treasure hidden beneath the routine of farm life. The villagers, meanwhile, continued their gossip. Whenever she went to the market or met people on the roads, they would make remarks. What can she possibly do? They would ask each other. She is only good at feeding animals and washing dishes. Words stung. But she let them pass through her mind without holding on too tightly. She knew that their doubt was not the truth. She had seen the magic in her own fingers, in the way the notes could make her heart swell and her soul feel lighter. She had felt the music speak for her when words could not. One afternoon, while she was fetching water from the nearby stream, a neighbor stopped by. The woman, who was older and wise, noticed the longing in the farmer's wife's eyes and asked gently, "Why do you look so sad, my dear?" She hesitated, then decided to share a little of her secret. She spoke about the piano, about the music that lived inside her, about the fear of showing it to anyone. The neighbor listened with understanding, nodding and smiling. "Then you must play," she said. "Don't let their words stop you. Sometimes people doubt what they do not understand. Let your music speak for you." Those words stayed with her, echoing in her mind as she returned to her home. Evenings became a mixture of excitement and nerves. She would look at the gathering date marked in her calendar and feel a mixture of anticipation and fear. Each note she played seemed to carry her emotions, the sorrow of hard work, the joy of small victories, and the hope of being recognized. She began to feel stronger, more determined. She knew that if she could just get through the first few notes in front of the villagers, everything could change. At night, when the farm was quiet and the moonlight spilled across the fields, she would close her eyes and imagine the audience. She pictured their faces, first full of doubt and laughter, then slowly changing as they listened, their eyes widening in surprise, their mouths opening in awe. She imagined herself smiling quietly, feeling the music move through her and into their hearts. These moments of imagination strengthened her, making the fear a little smaller and the courage a little bigger. She also began to pay attention to details she had never considered before. She practiced not only the songs she loved, but also new pieces that were challenging, pieces that would show the depth of her skill. She learned to play softly and loudly, to express sadness and joy through the same keys. She realized that it was not enough to simply play the notes. She had to convey emotion. To make the music a story that people could feel, friends and family started noticing small changes. Her hands were more confident, her movements more graceful, and her smile carried a quiet sense of purpose. The children in the village, who often ran around playing games, began to peek through the windows, curious about the sounds coming from the farmer's home. Some whispered to each other, guessing that she might be practicing for the gathering. Even though the villagers still doubted her publicly, small whispers of curiosity began to spread. People wondered silently what she was up to. That curiosity was something she could feel as a small encouragement. The days moved closer to the event, and the farmer's wife felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. She knew that once she decided to perform, there would be no turning back. But every evening, as her fingers moved across the piano and the music filled the small room, she felt ready. The practice gave her strength, and the music reminded her of her own value, separate from the opinions of others. She realized that this was not just about proving them wrong, it was about proving to herself that her dreams and talents mattered. The night before the gathering, she sat by the piano for hours. The room was quiet except for the sound of her playing. She played softly, letting the notes drift into the shadows, practicing until every transition felt smooth and every melody felt alive. The moonlight shone through the window, touching the keys and creating a shimmering path of light. She closed her eyes and imagined stepping into the gathering the next day, imagining the first moment her fingers would touch the keys. She could hear the whispers, the doubtful glances. But she also heard something else, the music itself, strong and clear, calling her forward. Sleep eventually took her. But even in her dreams, she was playing. She dreamed of the faces of villagers changing, of their laughter turning into awe, of her own heart swelling with pride. The music was her guide, her companion, her friend. It reminded her that even in a world full of doubt, there was beauty and there was hope. The next morning, she woke with the sun rising over the fields, painting the village in shades of gold. She felt a quiet determination settle in her chest. Today was the day she would take a step forward, a day she would face her fears, a day she would let her talent shine. The farmer's wife knew that it would not be easy. She knew that people might still doubt her, might still laugh, might still whisper behind her back. But she also knew that she had worked hard, that she had prepared, and that she was ready. As she left her home to begin her chores for the day, she carried with her a secret pride. The piano waited for her return, and with it the music that had become a part of her soul. She knew that one day soon, the villagers would hear it too. And when they did, she hoped they would see her not just as a farmer's wife, but as a woman who had hidden her talent and nurtured it in the quiet corners of her life. For now, she went about her work with a calm focus, knowing that every chore completed, every step taken in the sun and dust, brought her closer to the moment she had been dreaming of. Even in the midst of her daily labor, she found small moments of joy. The sun on her face, the smell of the earth, the sound of birds singing it, all reminded her of the beauty she could bring into the world through music. And as she moved through her day, she imagined the first note she would play in front of the villagers, the moment when doubt would meet talent, and the moment when the farmer's wife would show everyone that she could do more than they ever imagined. The spark in her eyes grew brighter, and deep down, she knew that this was the beginning of something extraordinary. After the long day of chores, the farmer's wife returned home with the sun sinking behind the hills. Her hands were sore from milking the cows and gathering eggs, and her back ached from bending and lifting, yet a quiet excitement filled her heart. Tonight, she would sit at her piano and continue the work she had started weeks ago. The secret practice she had been dedicating herself to had become a ritual, something she could not give up, even when exhaustion pressed down on her like the weight of the fields. She worked every day. She prepared her little corner where the piano sat. The lamp flickered as she lit it, casting soft shadows on the walls. She brushed her hands gently over the worn keys, feeling the familiar texture beneath her fingers. Each key carried memories of past melodies, of quiet evenings spent alone in the company of music. She took a deep breath and started playing, her fingers moving slowly at first, then picking up speed as the notes began to flow naturally. The room filled with the sound, a mixture of tenderness and strength. Each note carrying a piece of her soul. Practice was never easy. Some days, she struggled with the transitions, her fingers hesitating or striking the wrong note. Sometimes, the rhythm did not feel right, or a melody she had imagined in her mind sounded awkward when played. She would pause, frown, and repeat the passage until it felt correct. Often, her patience was tested, and frustration threatened to take over. But she reminded herself that this was a process. Talent, she realized, was not enough without dedication, and she was ready to dedicate herself fully, even if it meant long nights and sore fingers. Her life on the farm continued as before, but now it was interwoven with music. When she fed the chickens or milked the cows, she hummed softly to herself, imagining melodies that she would later practice. The rhythm of the work itself seemed to blend with the music, the cluck of hens and the lowing of cows forming a background to her thoughts. She began to notice patterns and rhythms in daily life that could be translated into music. This connection made her work feel less like labor and more like preparation for the moments when she could sit at the piano. Some neighbors began to notice small changes in her. She walked with a lighter step, her eyes had a quiet shine, and there was a calm confidence in her movements. People whispered to each other, wondering what she was up to, though no one could guess the truth. Even her family noticed. Her spouse, who had always been supportive but practical, began to ask gently about the music she played in secret. The children, curious and wide-eyed, would sometimes peek around corners, catching glimpses of her playing. Her secret was no longer entirely hidden, but she welcomed the quiet encouragement more than the distraction. In her small home, evenings became sacred. She would finish the chores, prepare a simple meal, and then retreat to the piano. The world outside faded, and she was left with the keys, the notes, and the music flowing through her. She began to experiment, trying pieces that were more complex than what she had ever attempted. She wanted to challenge herself, to stretch her skill and express the deepest emotions she could feel. Some pieces brought tears to her eyes as they reminded her of struggles past, hopes for the future, and the longing for recognition. The piano became not just an instrument, but a friend and a mirror to her own heart. As the days passed, she faced moments of doubt. The villagers continued their whispers, their jokes, and their smirks. She is only a farmer's wife, some would say. What can she know about music? The words sometimes reached her ears, and a twinge of fear would creep in. What if they laughed? What if she failed in front of everyone? She would close her eyes, take a deep breath, and remind herself why she was doing this. It was not just to prove others wrong. It was to prove to herself that her talent mattered, that her passion was valid, that she could step out of the shadows of expectation. During this time, she discovered the importance of discipline. She set small goals, deciding to master one section of a piece at a time. She would repeat it endlessly, moving slowly at first, then faster as confidence grew. The repetition, though tiring, brought a sense of achievement. Each small victory was a reminder that she was capable, that effort combined with patience could overcome natural limitations. This discipline also carried into her farm work. She realized that the same dedication she gave to music could be applied to everything in life. and it made her feel stronger, more resilient. The villagers, unaware of the hours she spent practicing, continued to assume she had no skills worth showing. They would gossip about the upcoming talent gathering, laughing at the idea of her performing. But in her heart, she began to feel a quiet power. The secret she had nurtured was growing stronger every day. Her fingers moved with confidence, her melodies with emotion, and her spirit with courage. She could sense the change within herself, a transformation from a timid, doubted woman to someone ready to face the world. One afternoon, while walking to the well, she met a young neighbor who loved music. The child had been learning to play a small instrument and had been struggling. Seeing her, the child asked shyly for advice. She smiled gently, remembering her own journey, and offered guidance, teaching the child a simple technique. The child's eyes lit up, and the farmer's wife felt a spark of joy. She realized that sharing knowledge, even in small ways, brought happiness and strengthened her own confidence. She saw herself reflected in the young learner, a reminder that effort and perseverance were always rewarded. Nights became longer. With her staying up past the usual hour to refine her skills, she experimented with tempo, with the emotion behind each note, and with the feeling of the music. Sometimes she would stop and just listen, closing her eyes and letting the sound envelop her. In these moments, she felt free from judgment, from expectation, and from the routine that defined her daily life. Music became her escape, her expression, and her sanctuary. It reminded her that she was more than a farmer's wife. She was an artist in her own right, with a story to tell. Her spouse noticed the dedication and the change. One evening, after a long day in the fields, he sat quietly and listened as she played. The notes were hesitant at first, but grew into a flowing melody full of feeling. He was silent for a long time, and then he said softly, "You have something beautiful here. You must share it." Those words, simple and sincere, became a source of courage for her. If someone who truly knew her believed in her, then perhaps the rest of the village could be shown the same. The night before the gathering, she spent hours at the piano. Every note, every pause, every transition was refined and polished. She imagined the moment she would perform, envisioning the faces of the villagers and the emotions she wanted to evoke. Fear still lingered, but it was tempered by determination. She was ready to take the first step, to transform the whispers of doubt into an experience of wonder. As she played the final notes, a sense of peace settled over her. The journey of preparation had been long, but it had strengthened her in ways she had never imagined, even in the quiet of the night. She could feel the anticipation building. Tomorrow, she would step into a space where everyone could see her talent. She knew it would not be easy, that judgment and skepticism might still greet her. But she also knew that she had worked hard, that she had nurtured her gift, and that she had the courage to take the stage. The music had become a part of her, intertwined with her very being, and she felt ready to share it with the world. As she finally lay down to rest, she thought of the path ahead. It was more than a performance. It was a declaration of self-belief. It was a chance to show that dedication, courage, and passion could overcome doubt and mockery. She drifted into sleep with the melodies still playing in her mind, feeling both nervous and exhilarated. The journey of preparation had been transformative, and she knew that no matter what happened tomorrow, she had already grown stronger, more confident, and more in tune with her own dreams. The day of the gathering arrived, with a soft, pale light spreading across the village. The streets were alive with people carrying baskets, chatting and laughing. Children ran ahead, chasing one another, their voices echoing through the fields. The farmer's wife walked quietly among the crowd, her heart beating faster with every step. She carried no basket, no tools, only the anticipation that had been building inside her for weeks. She could hear the whispers and feel the doubtful glances of the villagers. But she tried to focus on the music she had practiced for so long. The gathering took place in the village square, a wide open space where tents were set up and small stages had been arranged for performances. Some villagers were showing off crafts, others reciting poems or singing, after an applause filled the air. When she arrived, a few familiar faces turned toward her, some curious, others skeptical. She felt a shiver run down her spine, but held her head high. Today, she thought, I will show them what I can do. As she approached the small stage, she noticed that some people whispered and nudged each other. A few openly chuckled, saying she can't even carry water properly, and now she thinks she can play music? Their words stung, but she reminded herself that their doubt was not the truth. Inside her, a fire burned brighter than fear. She had prepared, practiced, and believed in her own abilities. This was her moment. The stage was simple, with a wooden platform and a single piano in the corner. She climbed onto it, the boards creaking slightly beneath her weight. She sat down, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands over the keys. Crowd was quieting down, sensing that something different was about to happen. Her fingers trembled for a moment, but she closed her eyes and remembered the countless hours she had spent practicing in the privacy of her home. She could feel the music already waiting within her, ready to flow. She began with a soft note, almost hesitant, but it carried a warmth that immediately caught the attention of the villagers. The first few measures were careful, precise, and filled with emotion. The villagers looked at each other, some frowning in disbelief, others leaning forward with curiosity. Whispers died down as the sound of the piano grew stronger and more confident. Each note seemed to carry a story, a mixture of longing, hope, and determination. The farmer's wife could feel the energy of the crowd, but she focused only on the music, letting her fingers tell the tale that words could not. As she played, the melody grew richer and more complex. The villagers were surprised by the depth of feeling in her music. Her fingers moved with confidence now, dancing across the keys, expressing joy, sorrow, and triumph all at once. The rhythm of the piano seemed to echo the rhythm of her own life. Early mornings, the hard work, the quiet moments of reflection, and the hidden joy she had carried for years. Each note she played told a part of her story, and slowly the villagers began to sense that this was no ordinary performance. Some faces changed noticeably. A group of older women who had always dismissed her suddenly stopped whispering, their mouths slightly open in astonishment. The young children watching tilted their heads, wide-eyed, captivated by the music. Even the men, who had been joking moments before, now stood silently, listening intently. The farmer's wife felt a mixture of relief and exhilaration. The fear that had gripped her only moments ago was fading, replaced by a profound sense of connection with her audience. The music was breaking down the walls of doubt. She moved to the more challenging parts of her performance, where the notes flowed rapidly and demanded precision. Her fingers flew across the keys with skill and grace, the sound echoing across the village square. Some villagers gasped quietly, realizing that the talent they had dismissed was far greater than they had imagined. She noticed a few people nodding, acknowledging the beauty of what they were hearing. For the first time, she felt not just acceptance but admiration. The farmer's wife played not for the applause or the recognition, but for the music itself. Each note was infused with her life experiences, with her struggles and triumphs. The villagers could feel it, even if they could not fully understand it. The melody seemed to lift them, carrying them away from the simplicity of the village square into a world where emotion and art could be felt by anyone. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, while others smiled, surprised by the depth of feeling conveyed by someone they had underestimated. Her heart raced as she reached the climax of the piece. She could feel the intensity building, her fingers moving faster, the melody soaring. The crowd was captivated, completely silent except for the sound of the piano. The energy of the performance seemed to create a bridge between her and the audience. She could sense their astonishment, their disbelief transforming into awe. Her secret was no longer hidden, and the villagers were witnessing the full extent of her talent for the first time as she played the final notes. She slowed down, letting each note resonate, filling the air with a lingering sense of beauty. When the last note faded, there was a brief moment of silence. Then, slowly, the villagers began to clap. The applause grew louder, spreading across the square, and soon everyone was cheering. Some villagers even wiped away tears, moved by the unexpected depth of her music. The farmer's wife sat back, breathing heavily, her heart swelling with pride and relief. She had done it. She had faced her fear, embraced her talent, and shared it with the world. People began to approach her, some hesitantly, some with excitement. They spoke words of praise and admiration, apologizing for doubting her, asking how she had learned to play so beautifully. Children tugged at her hands, smiling and asking her to teach them. The older villagers shook their heads in disbelief, still trying to comprehend how someone they had underestimated could possess such extraordinary skill. The farmer's wife smiled, listening to each word, feeling a warmth that she had never known before. She had transformed how people saw her. The rest of the gathering continued, but the focus had shifted. Around her, talking quietly about the performance, sharing their amazement with neighbors. Her spouse stood nearby, smiling proudly, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude. Every long hour of practice, every moment of doubt and frustration had led to this instant of triumph. She realized that courage and perseverance could overcome even the strongest skepticism. As the sun began to set, casting a golden light over the village, the farmer's wife stepped down from the stage. She felt lighter, freer, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The experience had changed her, not just in the eyes of the villagers, but within herself. She knew that she had the power to create, to inspire, and to express herself fully. The piano, once a private companion, had become a bridge between her and the world, allowing her to connect with others in a profound and meaningful way. Walking home, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The early mornings, the late nights, the secret practice, and the quiet moments of determination had all contributed to this triumph. She realized that talent alone was not enough. It required dedication, courage, and a willingness to face fear. She had learned that even in a world filled with doubt and mockery, one could rise above expectations and reveal their true abilities. That night, as she returned to her small home and touched the keys of her piano, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The music was no longer just a secret. It was a gift to be shared, a language through which she could communicate her emotions and experiences. She played for hours, letting the melodies flow freely, each note a testament to her journey, her perseverance, and her triumph over doubt. The farmer's wife knew that this was only the beginning, and that her life had been forever changed by the courage to believe in herself and her music. After her performance, the atmosphere in the village square had completely changed. The people, who had once whispered and laughed, were now gathered around her, eyes wide with astonishment and voices filled with admiration. It was as if a curtain had been lifted, and everyone could finally see the talent they had refused to believe existed. The farmer's wife stood quietly, trying to absorb the moment. She had expected some praise, perhaps polite applause, but this overwhelming appreciation was beyond anything she could have imagined. Children ran up to her, asking questions, wanting to touch the keys and learn simple tunes. She smiled gently, showing them the basics, patiently guiding their fingers. Their excitement was infectious, and she laughed softly, feeling a joy that was entirely different from the nervous thrill she had felt on stage. She realized that her music had not only captivated adults, but had also sparked inspiration in the youngest members of the village. It was a reminder that talent, when nurtured and shared, could ignite passion in others. Villagers began to approach, her individually expressing their amazement and offering apologies for their previous doubts. An older woman, who had been particularly vocal in mocking her, said with a trembling voice, "I never thought someone like you could play like that. I was wrong, and I am so sorry." The farmer's wife nodded graciously, not with pride, but with an understanding that people often judge before they see. She accepted their apologies silently, realizing that this moment was not about revenge, but about connecting with others through her music. Some villagers asked about her training, wanting to know how she had learned to play so beautifully. She shared her story softly, explaining that she had learned as a child and continued to practice in secret while managing her farm duties. People listened, astonished at her dedication and resilience. Many could not imagine balancing the hard work of the farm with the discipline required to master the piano. Her story became a lesson, not only in talent, but in perseverance, patience, and the courage to pursue one's passions despite societal expectations. Her spouse watched quietly from a distance, a proud smile on his face. He had always believed in her, but seeing the villagers' reactions confirmed something even he had not fully realized. The admiration she was receiving was well-deserved. He could see the transformation in her, the confidence, the poise, and the quiet strength that had always existed but had now come to the surface. It was a beautiful moment, shared silently between them, acknowledging the long journey that had brought her here. As the gathering continued, more people came forward to request songs. She played patiently, choosing pieces that conveyed different emotions: joy, sadness, hope, and triumph. Each melody seemed to resonate with the listeners in a unique way. Some closed their eyes, letting the music take them on a journey. Others leaned forward, captivated by the skill and emotion conveyed through each note. The farmer's wife realized that her music had the power to move people, to create a connection that words alone could not achieve. The villagers who had initially doubted her began to change not just in attitude, but in understanding. They whispered to each other, acknowledging that they had been quick to judge. The laughter that once followed her now transformed into admiration and respect. She had proven something important, not just that she could play the piano, but that people often underestimate others based on appearances and assumptions. Her performance became a quiet lesson in humility and recognition for everyone present. Among the crowd were a few visitors from nearby villages who had heard about her talent. They approached her with interest, asking if she would consider performing at events beyond the village. The idea was both exciting and overwhelming. She had never thought of herself as a performer outside her home and community. Yet the suggestion sparked a new possibility in her mind. The thought of sharing her music with a wider audience filled her with a sense of purpose and hope. Perhaps her gift was meant to reach beyond the small village, where she had lived quietly for so long. As the evening approached, the farmer's wife began to notice the change in herself. The fear and doubt that had accompanied her for years had melted away. She felt a newfound confidence, a quiet pride that did not boast, but simply acknowledged her own effort and talent. The piano, once a secret companion, had become a bridge to the world, allowing her to express herself fully and connect with people in a way that nothing else had. People lingered around her, talking and sharing their impressions. The children continued to play, trying out simple notes on the piano while parents watched and smiled. Some of the older villagers discussed how they had misjudged her, realizing that talent and dedication can exist in unexpected places. The farmer's wife listened, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and joy. She had faced her fear, overcome skepticism, and, in the process, had inspired others. She took a moment to reflect on the journey. That afternoon, a local school invited her to perform for the students. She accepted gladly, excited to share her music with young minds. As she played, she noticed the children's eyes widening in wonder, their faces lighting up with joy. Some were inspired to try music themselves, while others simply listened, feeling the emotion and beauty in the melodies. The experience reinforced her belief in the power of music to inspire, teach, and connect people across generations. She also began composing her own pieces, drawing inspiration from the fields she worked in, the village she loved, and the emotions she had experienced throughout her life. Each composition told a story, weaving together memories, dreams, and hopes. Performing her own music was a deeply personal experience, and the villagers listened with reverence and admiration. Her compositions became a reflection of her journey, a testament to the power of dedication, resilience, and the courage to pursue one's dreams. Through all these experiences, the farmer's wife continued to grow not only as a musician, but as a person. She developed a deep sense of empathy, understanding the struggles and aspirations of others in the village. Her music became a way to bring people together, to celebrate talent, and to honor the human spirit. She found joy in helping others discover their own abilities and passions, becoming a source of inspiration and encouragement for the community. Years passed, and the farmer's wife became a respected figure in the village and beyond. Her journey from a woman whose talent was hidden and underestimated to a skilled and admired musician, served as a powerful example of what can be achieved through perseverance and self-belief. She continued to perform, teach, and compose, always remembering the early days when she had played in secret, driven by passion and hope. Looking back, she realized that her life had been transformed by her courage to embrace her talent. The ridicule and doubt of others had been powerful motivators, pushing her to prove not only her skill, but her worth. Yet, she also understood that the true reward was not in recognition alone, but in the growth, connection, and fulfillment that music had brought into her life. Her story became a legacy, reminding everyone in the village that talent and determination could flourish in the most unexpected places. Ad had brought her here. The long hours of work on the farm, the secret practice sessions late into the night, the patience and determination required to improve a lot of it had led to this moment of recognition. She understood that success was not only about the performance itself, but also about the journey, preparation, and the courage to continue despite doubt and difficulty. Her music had become a reflection of her life, a story told through sound, and the villagers had finally listened. A few villagers approached her with small tokens of appreciation, flowers, and handwritten notes praising her skill. She accepted them with gratitude, knowing that the true reward was not in these items, but in the understanding and admiration she had earned. Each gesture reinforced the impact of her performance and reminded her that sharing one's passion could touch the lives of others in profound ways. As night fell and the gathering began to wind down, the farmer's wife felt a sense of peace. She had faced her fears, shared her talent, and transformed the perceptions of those around her. The music had created connections that went beyond words, inspiring, moving, and teaching valuable lessons about perseverance and belief in oneself. The villagers would remember this day not just for the beautiful melodies, but for the courage of the woman who had been underestimated and had risen above expectations. Walking home through the quiet streets, she felt the cool evening air on her face. The stars above twinkled softly, and the moonlight illuminated the path ahead. She thought about the future, the possibilities, and the impact her music could have. The experience had given her confidence to continue practicing, to explore new pieces, and perhaps even perform for larger audiences. She realized that this was only the beginning of a journey that could extend far beyond the small village she had called home. That night, in the quiet of her home, she returned to her piano. Her fingers moved effortlessly over the keys, playing the melodies she had practiced for so long. The music filled the room, carrying with it the triumph, joy, and hope that had been forged through dedication and courage. She smiled softly, feeling the warmth of accomplishment and the excitement of new possibilities. The farmer's wife had proven herself, not through boastful claims, but through the quiet power of talent, persistence, and the courage to believe in herself. And in that music, she found not just expression, but a voice that could inspire and touch the hearts of others for years to come. After the gathering, the farmer's wife found herself walking through the village with a new sense of purpose. The applause, the smiles, and the admiration from the villagers still echoed in her mind. She felt lighter, as if a weight she had carried for years had been lifted. The fear and doubt that once lingered in her heart had been replaced with confidence and a quiet pride. She knew that she had changed, and so had the way people saw her. The village, which had once viewed her as a simple farmer's wife, now recognized her as someone with extraordinary talent and determination. Word of her performance spread quickly. Neighbors told their friends and relatives who spoke to others. And soon people from nearby villages were curious to see the woman who had amazed everyone with her piano playing. Invitations came from different households to perform at small gatherings, and though she felt nervous, she also felt a thrill at the thought of sharing her music with new audiences. Each invitation was a chance to grow, to improve, and to inspire more people with the melodies she had nurtured in secret for so long. Her days began to balance between farm work and music. She continued her chores with the same diligence, but now there was a new energy in her step. She would rise early, complete her responsibilities, and then take moments to practice, refining her skills and preparing for future performances. The piano had become not just a personal sanctuary, but a symbol of her resilience and dedication. Every note she played carried the story of her journey, the hours of practice, the moments of doubt, and the triumph over skepticism. The villagers, too, had changed. The ones who had once mocked her now approached her with respect. Children would gather around, eager to learn, and adults would watch with admiration. Some asked for lessons, curious to understand how she had cultivated such talent while managing her demanding life. She welcomed these opportunities, sharing her knowledge patiently and encouraging others to pursue their own hidden passions. It became clear to her that her journey was no longer only about her. It was about inspiring others, showing that dedication and courage could break barriers and change perceptions. One day, a traveling music teacher arrived in the village. He had heard stories of the farmer's wife and came to see for himself. He watched quietly as she played, listening to the nuances, the emotion, and the skill in her performance. After she finished, he approached with a smile. "Your talent is remarkable," he said. "Have you ever considered formal training? With your dedication and skill, you could achieve great things." The suggestion filled her with a mixture of excitement and hesitation. Formal training meant new challenges and stepping even further beyond her comfort zone. But it also meant the possibility of growing in ways she had never imagined. That evening, she sat by her piano, reflecting on her journey. She remembered the days when she had hidden her talent, fearing judgment, and the nights she had spent practicing alone. She thought about the courage it had taken to step onto the stage at the village gathering, and the way her music had touched the hearts of others. Now, the idea of further training felt like a natural next step, a continuation of the journey she had begun. She decided to take the opportunity. Understanding that growth often comes from embracing new challenges, her family supported her wholeheartedly. Her spouse encouraged her to pursue this path, reminding her that her talent and dedication deserved recognition and growth. The children were excited, asking endless questions about the music and expressing their admiration. Their enthusiasm reminded her that her journey was not only about her personal achievement, but also about inspiring the next generation to believe in themselves and pursue their passions, no matter the obstacles. Over the following months, she continued to practice diligently while also learning from the music teacher. Each lesson brought new techniques, new understanding, and deeper emotional expression. She discovered that music could convey complex feelings that words often could not. The piano became a medium through which she could communicate her experiences, her struggles, and her joys. Her performances grew more refined. The villagers watched with admiration as she continued to improve and explore the depths of her talent. The farmer's wife also noticed a change within herself. The confidence she had gained through her performances and practice extended into other areas of her life. She approached her farm work with a renewed sense of energy and purpose, finding creative solutions to challenges and sharing her knowledge with others. She realized that the determination and discipline she applied to music could be applied to any aspect of life, and this insight gave her a sense of empowerment that went beyond talent alone. As she performed at more gatherings and small events, as her reputation grew, people traveled from nearby villages to hear her play, and she began to receive invitations to larger events. Each performance brought new experiences, new lessons, and new connections. She learned to manage nerves, to engage with audiences, and to express herself authentically through music. The once doubtful villagers watched with pride as someone they had underestimated blossomed into a skilled and respected musician. Despite her growing recognition, she remained humble. She remembered the days when she had played in secret, the nights filled with quiet practice, and the moments of fear before stepping onto the stage. These memories grounded her, reminding her that her journey had been shaped by persistence, courage, and self-belief. She shared these lessons with those who sought her guidance, emphasizing the importance of patience, hard work, and believing in oneself even when others doubt.